Hello, White Sox fans, and welcome to another edition of the FutureSox podcast. My name is Ian Eskridge. Joining me this evening is my co-host, Mr. James Fox. How are you, James?
I'm good, sir. How's it going?
It's going well. The White Sox have a new manager. Of course, they hired him right, a
Yeah, like
day after.
after we
Or,
recorded, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
of course. That's the way it always goes. So that happened, and Will Venable is the White Sox new manager, and I'm pretty excited, actually. Young guy, full of life, seems really intelligent. I dig the hire. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's kind of ironic that I think one of your points in the last podcast was that like there's not this like consensus guy that all the White Sox fans want. But I do think once that name was leaked, a lot of people similar to like us that do kind of this sort of thing were like, oh, well, if that's an option, like hire Will Venable. And not that any of us know that he's going to be great at this, but like he's been offered he hasn't been offered good jobs before, but he's been offered the opportunity to like interview for good jobs, and he's turned them down. And I think if there were 5 or 6 openings, he probably would have interviewed everywhere. He would have been a top candidate. It's not like they just like pulled this guy out of nowhere. That was Craig Albernaz, but he might be okay too. But so yeah, Venable's been like a hot candidate for a while. He chose the White Sox. He kind of talked about why. We can get into that, but yeah, it's a lot more interesting than rolling out Phil Nevin.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, the Nevin thing was the thing that bothered me about Nevin was that we've seen him in other places and other dysfunctional places. At least Will Venable, when you see him, he's coming with pedigree from some good organizations and some good front offices. I even worked with Theo Epstein in the Cubs front office, and he was with Alex Cora. So I mean, there's some before he was with Bochy. So there's definitely some good pedigree there. Again, nobody knows what the how this year's going to go, and that he's going to be the most amazing manager. But at least it's a promising hire.
Well, I do think like the difference between him and Pedro, it seemed like at the time, and obviously like I was a fan of the Pedro Grifol hire. I kind of bought what he sold, which I don't know. I kind of feel like an idiot now, but the fact that Pedro never played in the big leagues seem to be a thing for guys. Like this is something that's been referenced a ton, like even in regards to Getz, like whether Getz is good or not. I feel like a lot of people like that some of these guys have like recent playing experience, so they could, they have something to fall back on. They understand where these players like have been. I think that helps. Like Will Venable was a decent big leaguer for 8 or 9 years. So it seems like people kind of like that. The fact that he's like been in their shoes before, that's it made him kind of a top candidate.
Yeah, it's I have to imagine as and especially as a younger player, having a guy that they can relate to that's been in the major league game, reasonably, you know, within a couple calendar years, not last year or anything, but I have to imagine that that's a comforting thing to have somebody that has been there and recently.
You want to pull these up? Yeah, some of these.
Yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate it.
This
Go
is
ahead.
this is so easy. It's like not even. I mean, do you want to answer it? Like I mean, for me, it's easily like, look, Matt Eberflus is going to be a top defensive coordinator candidate in 5 or 6. You know what I mean? Like he's going to be a really
Soon.
good. He's going to be a very good defensive coordinator in the AFC South next season. I don't know if Pedro Grifol is good at anything. Like if you want to do this cross sport thing, like Jim Boylan, Pedro Grifol, I think is more similar. But even then, again,
Ooh,
like Jim Boylan was a well-respected defensive assistant on an NBA bench. Like he coached with Popovich. He just shouldn't be a head coach. I can't imagine Grifol
clearly.
was. I can't imagine Grifol was ever good at anything. I mean, think about it. He was the bench coach for Ned Yost and for Mike Matheny. I mean, of course he seemed like a smart guy.
I mean, he wasn't like being held up to a very high standard in those two instances. So yeah, that's that's definitely a thing.
The White Sox fell in love with the bench coach of Ned Yost and Mike Matheny, and they interviewed like 40 people.
Well, this time Chris Getz said that they had a list of about 60 candidates.
Jeez.
Uh, that is that's actually that is promising. I like that. I've seen some people on on Twitter and some other things that they're kind of saying, okay, well, maybe Chris Getz does have somewhat of a clue because it seems like he made a fairly decent decision here with
Oh,
this
you
hire.
don't say that. I made a comment like that and people got really mad at me. I mean, here's the thing, like
Yeah.
everybody thinks Chris Getz is a total moron. I mean, it seems like good people kind of want to work with him. It's kind of weird. Like he might be bad at this ultimately in the end, but he's like finding a way to like get guys to come work for the White Sox somehow. I mean, I'll give him that much because even like asking around, like this David Keller guy is really respected. Can he sign international free agents? I have no idea. We're gonna find out, right? But that's a guy that could have went and worked a lot of different places. I don't love Josh Barfield, but I mean that's the type of hire anybody would make. Like somebody's farm director, former player as your assistant GM. Brian Bannister. There's all sorts of guys, and then they just hired Venable. So I mean, look, if they would have hired Phil Nevin, I might have been like, oh boy, like this is, they had to hire like the only guy that was worth it or that would like be willing to take it basically. But yeah, no, it's been kind of interesting. I hope they keep doing it. I mean, we heard another rumor today that we'll get into. I don't know, what the best job for that potential guy is, but I think we're going to keep hearing names that they add.
Yeah, like Uh, we've talked about this on here, and people can get upset if they want. How do we know if Chris Getz is any good? I mean, we saw
Mhm.
some of the trade returns, and some of the trade returns have been a little bit, less than in general, in return. And one of them ended up a world champion here with the Dodgers.
Yeah,
So,
it was a really bad one. I do think like a lot of people that hate his trades don't like the Dylan Cease trade. Like they just don't. They're not Drew Thorpe believers. Um, like I think the Cease trade was fine. I think the Gregory Santos trade looks fine to good in hindsight. Christian Mena obviously doesn't really seem like he's gonna be much, but they only got Dominic Fletcher for him, like so there's that one. And then the deadline was a disaster. So, like I get it. I guess we'll find out this offseason with Garrett Crochet most likely.
yeah, I think there's also there's some tiers here of how much you can expect from him, knowing that he's the GM for the White Sox and what they've been through the last couple of years. Like, I mean, the articles coming out, and players definitely read all this stuff and know all this stuff from talking with other people that they know. So he's going to have to work pretty hard against some of that stuff to try and get, free agents here, and we'll see what he ends up coming up with in this offseason, which we'll also get to here talking about the GM meetings a little bit. Um, so, do you want to move on to the rumored staff hire?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I feel like we could always bounce back to Venable, but I think everybody's kind of talked about this all week. I think we're the last show like this to tackle it. Did you? I don't know. Did you find anything he said particularly interesting? Like I
What?
think he just as far as like why. Like I think a lot of people were kind of like, "Hey, like you're a respected candidate. Why did you take this job?" type of thing. And to me, like it just kind of seems like I think Beef kind of nailed it. I think Bruce Bochy just isn't going to leave. And Will Venable's like, I kind of like Chicago when I lived there. Okay, fine. Like this is the opening. This is like the job I'm going to take type of thing.
Yeah, and I don't know if you listen to his interview on the R Chuck podcast here. I mean the just the fact that his family life also didn't line up with some of the offers that he got to interview for in the last couple of years, and he feels that now he's actually ready, and this is the job that he wanted to hop on with. So I can't imagine that the Marlins were just like, yeah, you're not our guy. you know?
No, and well, did they even hire McCullough, or did that not happen?
I haven't heard anything yet
Yeah, because I
on the
mean,
Marlins.
well, because Albernaz, like, pulled himself out of both jobs, and then Passion kinda reported, like, "Oh, Clayton McCullough is the favorite," or whatever.
Yeah,
But
he's the favorite, but
that was, like, a week ago now.
yeah, yeah, it's kinda surprising that they haven't announced anything yet, because you figure if that was their guy, that he would have
I
been.
mean, there's nothing stopping them. The GM meetings are happening right now. You'd think he wants somebody, like, in place.
You would think so. That is a bizarre thing. You kinda thought that the Marlins would have definitely hired somebody by now,
Yeah.
and, the fact that McCullough hasn't been named yet kinda makes me wonder what's going on. So,
But, yeah, no, I mean, what you kind of alluded to, so today it was reported, what, by Josh Nelson this morning, and then Sox on 35th had something too, I think. It's, Ryan Fuller, right? That's the name. I'm gonna say, I always wanna say Kyle Fuller, but he played corner for the Bears.
yes, it
Um,
is not Kyle Fuller
yeah,
or Steve Fuller.
I don't know if he can teach anybody how to hit a baseball. But no, I mean, this is an interesting guy. He's 34 years old. He was the Orioles, like, co-hitting coach, I believe, and both of their hitting coaches left, so the Orioles have, like, an opening right now. Um, so yeah, I mean, the rumor is that the White Sox are trying to add him in some capacity. So that's kind of what we can get into. What did you find today? Anything just, like, on his background stuff that's interesting?
I mean, nothing, like, nothing crazy, to me, like, the weird thing is with the Orioles, like, they had a fairly decent year, and looks like things have been kinda on the way up over there, and then
Yeah,
they still trimmed a bunch of the staff off this year.
yeah.
Um, that kinda makes me wonder what was going on over there, whether they're just being impatient, new ownership group, that these guys were some holdovers possibly. I can't remember. I don't I know I saw it, but I don't remember exactly when he was hired, but I mean, he hasn't, you
Well,
know.
he was their minor league hitting coordinator for a little bit, and then he was, like, their hitting coach, I think, at double or high A when Holiday and a lot of those guys were there. So, like, it's tough to give him credit for, like, those awesome guys, right? But I mean, that's helpful. I will say I reached out to, like, an Orioles guy that I know, just like a kind of like an informed fan, like, blogger type.
Mhm.
And he said that he was the co-hitting coach and was part of a program that strongly emphasized looking for pitches to hit hard in the air. The Orioles hit a ton of home runs and maximized exit velocity, but the approach got a lot of criticism in the second half this year when their all or nothing approach kind of left them totally inept with runners in scoring position, is what he said. A lot of fans wanted to see an adjustment in approach, but Fuller and the other co-hitting coach were adamant that what they were preaching worked best over the long run. So, like, both of those guys are out. It's kind of tough to blame him, I think, for the hitters. But even, like, kind of looking back, like, what do you think the Orioles' second half WRC plus was as a team?
Oh, I didn't even look. It couldn't have been good because they
No, it's not.
struggled pretty
But it's
mightily, didn't they?
well, no. So it's still like it's like 108 still.
Oh, I'm
Even like
thinking
no,
like,
no. Like,
the
as
last,
a,
like,
yeah. So
month or whatever.
no, no. So, like, the second half, like, the team was still like a 108 WRC plus, right?
Yeah.
Like, if the White Sox did that as a team, like, I don't think we've ever seen it. And the Orioles are like, yeah, not good enough. But I will say, I don't know if he was any part of this. I do like how the Orioles, like, were preaching hitting in the minor leagues, just as far as, like, if you reach for a pitch that you shouldn't swing at and you get a double, they, like, downgrade you for that because it's like a pitch that you should not swing at, right? They're
Yeah,
like, okay, great, you got a double, but, like, don't do that anymore. Like, that's a negative. Whereas in the White Sox development system, it's like, hey, you got a double, congratulations.
yeah.
And it, like,
Like, "Oh,
doesn't.
look at all these extra base hits."
Yeah, and it doesn't teach you about swing decisions. So, look, I don't know, like, what would you be more excited about? Big league hitting coach or director of hitting?
Oh. Uh,
Because they have a minor league hitting coordinator already in Alan Zinter,
Center, yeah.
and that's, like, probably a demotion. I mean, if he's the big league hitting coach, okay, that's fine, but I do feel like the way that it's, like, been reported, not that, like I don't think Josh Nelson's holding out, I think he reported what he heard,
Yeah.
but, like, I guess spot in the org could mean big league hitting coach, or it could mean Brian Bannister type on the hitting side, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think I would. Yeah, I'm more happy about the Venable thing actually. Um, because I feel like I think that there definitely does need to be obviously we've talked about this. There definitely needs to be a overall change in philosophy over the entire org as
Yeah.
far as hitting goes. Um, but I don't even know what they're hiring this guy for, if they're hiring him. I've just heard that they're interested.
Yeah, like,
So
they offered him a spot. Apparently, he follows the White Sox on Instagram, if that means anything, so
ooh,
yeah,
that is
that's what
big news if true.
yeah, that's what the kids are telling me, like,
Yeah.
it's like when an athlete wipes their thing clean, it's like, "They're about to get traded," like, it's like, yeah. It's when actually they just got mad or something. It's kinda weird.
Yeah. Um yeah, so I don't know. We'll see what happens here. We'll see where he ends up, and I don't know. I guess I'll make
Yeah.
my decisions then. I mean, I don't think that I we'll have to see like what Will Venable decides to do here with his staff in general. I'm kind of interested to see where all his hires go, because that's going to be another thing where I think it's going to show where like what he's thinking.
You see how many guys were forced on him? Like, what is Grady Sizemore doing exactly? Like, they're just raving about and because 'cause there's been rumors that he might just, like, go to the front office.
Hmm. Yeah,
Like,
that
do
would be
you need a
interesting.
big league field coordinator? Like, they make up a job, something, you know? Maybe he could be the associate manager here.
The associate manager. Yeah,
Well,
I mean, I guess.
That's what Will Venable was in
Yeah,
Texas.
yeah. So I mean I mean, sure, they could groom him for somebody else in that way, I
I mean,
guess.
I was talking about title inflation. Like, if you hire an associate manager, you still need a bench coach. It's like having 2 bench coaches.
True. Yeah, how many seats can they fill in the dugout, Have it so, like, the entire left half of the
Yeah,
entire
all
dugout is
coaches.
all coaches.
Mhm.
Um,
Do you think Will Venable could, um, platoon with Dominic Fletcher against left-handed pitching?
yeah, I did see some funny jokes that said that, Chris Getz just got his best free agent hitter that he's ever signed,
Yeah, yeah,
so
it's
that's kinda sad.
funny. Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, and, like, the other worry for me is that, we don't know what Will Venable's skill set is, as far as like how competent he's going to be as a manager. But the thing is that we have to worry about is that we don't know what kind of team he's going to be handed either, because it doesn't sound like he's getting any help in the form of a bat.
Yeah, I mean, unless it comes via trade, like, if it's 2 bats in the Crochet deal or something, like, too close to big league types, but, I mean, really thinking about their team, man. Like, I know we've kinda talked about it, like, I would we it's pretty much out there what we would do, at first base DH right now, you'd start totally fresh. So, I mean, like, if you sign 2 cheap boppers, eh, like, your team's kinda done. I mean, you need a right-handed hitting outfielder, like, if you're gonna have Benintendi in left and Robert in center, and then, I would imagine Fletcher's on the team. If you get him a right-handed partner, I mean, I think Ramos is playing third, and Montgomery will play short at some point, and Sosa probably gets another crack, and you have Vargas somewhere, and your catchers. I mean, it's not like they need to go sign 5 position players that are veterans. Just play the kids.
Yeah, they need to be better
Yeah, I
as
mean, it's
well.
just this is the time for these kids to play. So yeah, I mean, I would like a couple of strategic like, you know, guys to play for. Like, even if you sign like Carlos Santana, so he could keep going through the American League Central and play for every team.
Well, he says
Trade
he
him.
wants to play for 3 or 4 more
Yeah,
years,
trade him
so.
at the deadline, like Josh Bell, whoever. Like, I mentioned Anthony Rizzo. Fine, whatever. Like, I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't. I I personally would just not rather have Rizzo unless he's here as like a coach. That's my personal opinion. If he got hired as a coach, fantastic. I just his bat's kind of been slowly. He
Yeah.
could still hit some home runs. Maybe you could sign him and then just like kind of wean him into the dugout.
That's funny from Vince.
Which one's the
The one on Santana. Yeah.
oh jeez.
Yeah.
Santana takes too many walks to play for us. That's entirely possible.
I actually would I kind of wouldn't mind that signing. Like he's always good. Even he's like old as hell and he's still good.
Yeah, he's 38 and he says he wants to play for 3 or 4 more
He
years.
still just like
So,
walks and hits tanks and then goes to a playoff team at the deadline and whatever. Sox could oblige. They could do that.
yeah, probably.
The guy I thought was interesting was like Tyler O'Neill, but it seems like he's going to be way too expensive for them.
Well, considering that they said that they weren't going to spend any money, that doesn't really
Well,
surprise me.
they have to spend a little.
Do they?
I mean, their payroll's like 40 million pre-arb, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think it's 90, right? I mean, they're going to spend like 90 million. No?
I
I
don't
don't
think so.
I don't know, man. Like you're going to be down in like Marlins territory otherwise.
I kind of think that's what they're thinking for this year.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to spend. I mean, maybe they pick up like you know, I don't even know. I don't even know what they could get maybe a bullpen arm or two to flip.
A John Brebbia. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but that's pretty much about it because there's at this point they need to start letting these younger guys play
They
because
do.
we've been hearing about them for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
You can't like just continue to hold these guys off. I mean, we've been talking about them for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So they have to make their way up at some point. Otherwise, you just kind of have to chalk it up to that's org filler,
I do think veteran lefty starter, I think makes some sense. Like Quintana's probably too good,
too
but
much.
like,
Yeah.
but I mean, like if you're looking at the rotation without Crochet in it, like if Thorpe is fine, you're thinking Thorpe, Cannon, Burke, and Davis Martin in the rotation. It kind of leaves a spot. Like if they want to go with a vet, like that's probably fine. And then you have a whole bunch of guys knocking on the door that have made appearances and this and that. But I mean, I kind of said like I'd like them to spend on the bullpen because I think they can trade relievers, right? So yeah, I mean, I'm good with Carlos Santana, 2 relievers, some sort of righty hitting outfielder, you know,
Yeah.
lefty
I
pitcher,
would be perfectly fine with them signing Carlos Santana as a DH,
and then
but
Andre Vaughn at first, baby.
no. Yeah, and definitely Sheets he's gotta go.
Sheets will be
He's gotta go as
non-tendered.
well.
He'll be
I
non-tendered. I'm not
you
sure about
hope
Vaughn, but Sheets will be non-tendered. It's like
I
$2
hope
million. No way. Yeah.
he's a very good clubhouse guy. Very good clubhouse guy.
He's a very bad baseball player, though. Like,
Vince asks if Schultz a possibility later in the year.
I think so. I mean, I don't see why not. If he does what he did, I mean, because even we talked about this, like even if you start him at double and then he moves on to triple A, I mean, yeah, like if he's dominating triple A, like what are we doing here? Like you get him some starts late in the year if you want.
Yeah. I that
Yeah.
kind of talent as long as he's still doing what he's been doing. I don't see any
Especially
reason.
especially if they're bad, but like more exciting, but like they want to kind of add a little bit for 2026, then there's no reason to not have Schultz and Smith and, just give them a taste. And then those guys are in your 26 rotation. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and also, I mean, one of the things that you have to think about, and this is so sad to be thinking about right now, is that what the pitching rotation is going to look like after the trade deadline next year. Because who knows how many how many people are going to get moved, like what's going to happen here. We have absolutely no idea. We know that they're not going to win 100 games this year, that's for sure. Just the question remains is how many are they going to lose? Are they going to lose 100 again? I hope not, but
It's funny if they lose 100, Will Venable's 20 game improvement.
So sad.
Yeah. It's like, hey, we improved by 20 games and we went 61 and 101.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? That's a 20 game improvement, and it at least looks like. I mean, imagine how much better 101 loss team is going to look than what we would just watch this year.
Oh yeah, way better. Like they could be just like a normal 100 loss team and it would be, you know what I mean, like decent young starting pitching, bad bullpen.
Mhm.
Lose 100 games. You know what I mean? This year was just, like just awful. Like
Yeah,
you can't even watch the games and that's why it doesn't matter. Like it didn't matter.
yeah. Well, it's like one of those things where Griffell lost the clubhouse. As soon as they
Early.
got to Chicago.
Early. Yeah,
Awful.
because that's a lot of empty promises and just look, man, athletes can tell a phony, like right away. They know when you're full of crap. So
So I'm gonna bring this up here. Uh,
I don't know.
so there's a question here in chat that Joshua Nathan Strong put up here. Heard anything on the bench coach? Napoli is available. He has ties to Venable. Maybe he comes on. So one name that I've heard in a couple of places, which is kind of funny, is Rick Renteria.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's kind of a mentor
it would be awesome.
to Will Venable. That would be an interesting hire. And Chris Getz did happen to slyly slide something in, say, some people might be coming back when it was asked about hires.
You might see some familiar faces. I
Yeah,
mean, my thought was like that means Grady Sizemore, Ethan Katz, Matt
yeah.
Wise, but I'm curious on hitting coach because I've heard that um who was here last year? That Marcus Timms was like
Mm.
pretty respected, like even though they were terrible. I don't want a hitting coach forced on Will Venable. So
Yeah, I would like him to at least be able to pick some of his staff here.
yeah, I mean, like I get forcing Ethan Katz on him if that's who Brian Bannister wants, but
Make Greg Walker.
fire Greg Walker.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fire him. He hasn't even been hired yet, but fire him, please.
fire Greg Walker. Yeah. And Wolf, a
Um,
guy, somebody asked about Marcana.
yeah,
I think Marcana goes to a good team.
I think so as well.
I mean,
I
he's
don't
very
think.
like like look at Marcana's numbers against left-handed pitching. They're like really good. Like he could be on a small market contender.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think he's too good to be here. I think. Plus, at some point, like we said, you got to let some of these young guys play. Otherwise, you're never going to know what you have. Hopefully, a
Yeah.
couple of these guys take off here.
You think is it the right year to like fulfill like the prophecy of like Jock Peterson or like a Joey Gallo? Like we talked about these guys for years, right? Michael Conforto. This was like all these guys were the left-handed bats that were gonna like save the White Sox during like the contention part of the rebuild. Like these are the names I talked about. Like, look at their WRC plus against righties. Like I was, go find my old tweets. But I mean, I think all three of those guys are available.
Yeah, I saw that Jock Peterson turned down his option, and I was like, "Oh, Rick Hahn can finally get his guy." Wah, wah.
Yeah,
So
well, he was gonna get him until Peggy Kaczynski's son like ruined the trade on Twitter, apparently. So
that's boo hoo.
I was
Yeah,
at
if you
I remember I was at
if you
SoxFest at the time. It was so funny. The whole thing was like, "What?"
always blaming somebody else for
All
shortcomings,
all all the time. Usually Kenny Williams.
and I mean that's valid, but he couldn't say that out loud.
Yeah, yeah.
That it would be interesting to see something, but I'm not really expecting a whole lot when it comes to free agents here. Um, so you got anything more on that stuff there? Move on to GM meetings here, qualifying offer stuff.
It's a lot
I
of weird qualifying offers, but I don't know. I think some of these teams just wanted to kinda crater the market of their own guys so they could bring them back, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that makes the most sense to me. I mean, some of these guys, if you get a qualifying offer, you should, pretty much take it from what we've seen in the market here over the last couple of years. It seems like a lot of the guys that don't take the qualifying offer, at least for the qual offer for 1 year, they always generally don't tend to make a whole lot more money.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the Jordan Montgomery, right? And then there's like it even just happened to Blake Snell. I mean, some of the problem is like these guys want real money, right? But then these teams like factor the qualifying offer and the draft pick, they factor all that stuff into the actual price. So then you're waiting forever and you're not signed. I mean, I think if you're who are some of the like if you're Nick Martinez or even maybe like Nick Pivetta, like if you could take a 1-year deal for $21 million, I think it might be in your best interest to do so, especially in this climate where like half the teams don't have television deals. I think that's exactly what the Mets did because Cohen's so rich that he's just like give the qualifying offer to Sean Manaea and Severino. I mean, the worst case scenario is they accept it, and then you just have them on your team.
Yeah. I mean, like, obviously, Juan Soto and Pete Alonso, they're not taking qualifying offers. They're going to hit the market. Corbin Burns, probably not. And I would imagine, like, probably like the top half of the list, they're probably not taking the QO, but the other guys 100% should.
Yeah, I mean, like what everybody below Santander could, like essentially.
Yeah. I
I
would
think a
say,
lot of
yeah,
people like,
I would say probably everybody below Alonso. I would say probably Santander down.
yeah, I think Santander will get paid, but because there's no bats.
Yeah, I don't know. I just
I
like
think the rumor is that there's a team like the Nats are gonna start spending. I think he was like rumored for them kind of to add to their young core. But I mean, he's like 30, I think, Santander. Um,
he's exactly the guy that they've signed over the last 15 years. That's the reason why they don't win the World Series.
yeah,
He's a guy who hits 230 elsewhere and they're like, "Oh yeah, he'll be great here in the Bronx." And then he goes there and he hits,
yeah.
220 and then they're surprised and everybody starts booing him.
Yeah, I mean, there's some interesting ones like Pete Alonso. Does he stay with the Mets? Like, I personally think the Mets are the favorites for Soto, because I think when you're Steve Cohen and you buy a baseball team, this is why for guys like this, especially without the Dodgers involved. Like, he sat out Shohei because I think he kind of knew he wasn't going to get him to New York, kind
Yeah.
of reset a little bit. But I mean, anytime a guy like this is, and look, there's not often a guy like this available, right? But when they are, and you're Steve Cohen, like, you're like, what's 650 million among friends? So
Yeah, I'm kind of curious, and of course, the Dodgers have become the new New York Yankees fans where they think that every single free agent that's very good is going to sign with them. But you've heard him rumored to go into the Dodgers. Um, at this point, I don't see how they can afford it, even unless he takes it, like $2 million a year and defers it till later on.
yeah. Did you see the Garrett Cole thing? Scott Boras like lost his fastball. Like I don't really understand this.
Do you think that the owners are starting to freeze him out?
Well, so he did this swell opt thing with Garrett Cole, which is a cool concept, right? Like he had 4 years and like 36 or something left on his deal. He opted out of it because then the Yankees supposedly had to tack on one more year at like 30. That would have made it 5 at 180.
Right, right.
Otherwise, he's a free agent. But instead, they extended the deadline, and then Garrett Cole decided to stay in New York for the original 4 years and 136, like without that swell opt concept on it. I retweeted something earlier that I thought was funny. It's where somebody basically tweeted that what Garrett Cole did today was like when George Costanza like got fired from his job in Seinfeld and then just like kept showing up to work. Like he just like came back to work. He was just like, oh yeah, never mind. None of that ever happened. Here I am. I'm back. Type of thing. Like I never opted out. That was never a thing.
Yeah. that contract in general, I thought was an interesting concept with that extra added year thing that would keep him for an extra couple of years, and you've seen his numbers. Like I was kind of torn because I've heard I've seen the stats of his fastball trending down, and some of his movement profiles have gotten a little bit worse. But then I also watched him pitch in the World Series against the Dodgers, and he just completely shut them down.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's probably a health risk at this point, that he's probably on his way out, and he's just going to kind of break down over the next couple of years here. So I think it's going to probably end up being a bad investment. But I was just kind of curious if they're going to let him walk or not.
Yeah, it sounds like he's staying there. I mean, so they must have clearly thought that like if he opted out, he wasn't going to get 4 at 136 anywhere else, which kind of surprises me because I feel like he would have. But yeah, I mean, you want to stay in New York, like I get that part of it. The one I found interesting that wasn't a qualifying offer was Walker Bueller. Like I guess I kind of get it, but like if you're the Dodgers, you could essentially do the same thing where we just talked about, right? If you QO him, he's just going to take the 21 million and stay with you. He's an interesting you know, I just think he's an interesting fit for like a good team. Like if you're Philly or somebody, like I don't know what kind of contract he gets. Like does he get like a 1+1 or whatever? But I mean, like a good team will sign him and just beat him into the ground probably.
No, I mean, I think that somebody's probably going to pay him some money to come and pitch for them for a few years. Because he's just coming off his second
Second
TJ.
one, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like he's looked fantastic since. I mean, he just you know needs to work back
Yeah.
into a normal load here, I think.
When I forgot like what the Dodgers have next year, like if Otani pitches, it's like Otani, Glasnow, and the other Japanese pitcher that they signed,
Yep.
Yamamoto.
Yeah.
And then who knows, like all indications are that Jack Flaherty like doesn't want to leave Los Angeles ever again. So like, maybe he stays, and that's just kind of and then they have a whole host of starting pitcher like prospects too.
Yeah, that's true, but I mean, we've watched this is that one thing that the Dodgers are good at doing is getting people there. The one thing that they've been absolutely terrible at is keeping them healthy.
I know. Yeah, they're hurt a ton.
Yeah, their starting pitching is always like a walking, a mash unit over there. So I don't know. I mean, if I'm the Dodgers, I'm not letting any of my top pitching walk if
Yeah.
I can avoid it. But I mean, what they've done maxing out that payroll, I don't know how many big contracts they're going to be giving out.
When they patch together bullpens, it's helpful when you can get like a guy like Michael Kopech basically for free. That's helpful. So
Yeah, it's helpful when somebody just gives you a guy that throws 102 miles an hour.
yeah, you know.
Yeah, and then there's this. See, Glasnow getting 5 at 25 for $125 million. I mean,
Yeah, because they only care about stuff. I mean, they just it's pretty interesting. I mean, even like on the position player side of things, I think I saw what Teoscar Hernandez says he doesn't want to leave either. It's like okay, well, you probably have to take significantly less money to stay there, I would think. But hey, man, whatever.
yeah, I mean, it's what's it worth it to? What makes it worth it to you? The staying with the Dodgers and staying in your family atmosphere or making money. That's
Right.
that's what it's going to boil down to.
And somebody also, Wolf, I think he asked about Jeff Hoffman from Philadelphia. So
Yeah.
I remember Jeff Hoffman. So he was coming out, I think he was out the same year as Carlos Rodon and Aaron Nola, if I remember correctly. And the White Sox had a lot of interest in Jeff. Like I heard a lot about Jeff Hoffman because at the time, it was just like Carlos Rodon's definitely a top 2 pick. It was like, I remember when Carlos Rodon fell to the White Sox, I like ran around my living room like, oh my God, like this is like the greatest thing because like it wasn't supposed to happen. But then Jeff Hoffman, obviously failed starter, I think out of Eastern Carolina, I believe, but he was awesome last year. Like he's going to get paid in a bullpen role. Like he's going to get 4 at, he might get like the old David Robertson deal, like 4 years, 60, something like that to go close for somebody. Um, so he's not a White Sox option.
Yeah, David Robertson also turned down his player option as well.
Yeah, and he didn't like Chicago very much, so I doubt he's.
And yes,
So
he did not enjoy his time.
something I found really interesting. Let me see if you find this as interesting as I do. So Michael Soroka was listed on this, like, the top 50 free agents or whatever. And obviously, like, I don't really have this pulled up, but how much money, what do you think? Michael Soroka, what does MLB Trade Rumors think? I was a little surprised, but I guess like nothing surprises me with pitching.
I don't know, 2 years, 14 million maybe?
Yeah, you nailed it. That's what. Yes. So you have the spreadsheet in front of you, apparently.
I
Like
don't. I've
no,
never seen it
no, no,
actually.
the spreadsheet that all these teams use, where they plug it in and they're like, "This is what you're worth." But
Yeah,
no. So, I
yes.
mean, he was like, he was really good, like in a relief role.
Yes.
Once they moved him. So yeah, I don't know, like I'd be okay with the White Sox bringing Soroka back and being like, "You're our closer. Here's $15 million, like for two, you know what I mean? Just whatever, like fine if he liked it here."
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be mad with him re-signing. I don't know if I'd necessarily put him in the closer role. I don't know. I probably wouldn't put him in high leverage, um, personally. But he's definitely. I feel like he's a guy who's going to bounce back at some point.
Yeah.
I think that it probably is taking him a little bit longer to find that zazz. You know,
Well,
so I think.
I wonder if they want to sign a closer like on a bad team, or if they want to like groom a guy, right? Like, is that Leisure or Baroa or like one of these other guys, or do you just want to go get somebody to close for you, like even though you're going to be bad?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question, actually. I don't know which one I would prefer either. I know that we have a ton of arms.
Yeah.
I just don't know, how they view them. I mean, I would assume that they think that there's got to be a closer in there somewhere. Um, but
That's a good question
yeah,
by Wolf.
I was going to bring that up.
I just thought about that too. I
So
don't I
Wolf
don't think so, but
asks if Peyton Paulette will be ready to close in 25, and I will say also I don't think so either. And also, I will note that Peyton Paulette hasn't pitched a while in the Arizona Fall League, so I don't know if he's done.
well, he did throw a lot of innings this year.
He did,
because
yeah.
because he has all the starter innings, like, so he's thrown over 100 probably. I mean, here's the thing: like listening to Paul Yanish talk, he makes it seem like starting again isn't completely out of the question, but Paulette really has the temperament for relief that
Oh, he does.
that you
Yeah,
look for. Like
yeah.
he's like a come in for one inning ass kicker type guy. So look, if Peyton Paulette is like their closer the next time they're decent, I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. I just don't know that it's going to be next year necessarily. And then even
Yeah.
like Eric Adler has pitched pretty well, right?
Yeah, he did pretty well in the Arizona Fall League, but he's it's like this. The thing about the Arizona Fall League now is that I feel bad for Sleepy because he's got to continue to write about the Arizona Fall League for the trending on the farm, and Colson's done. He's
Yeah,
not
they're all
coming
done.
back. Tim Elko and Eric Adler both got sent to Premier 12. I haven't seen Peyton Paulette pitch
Yeah.
in a while. So you got Michael Turner that plays like once a week, twice a week if you're lucky. DJ Gladney, same thing, and then you've got Dahlquist and Taylor's like the lone like top ish prospect guy that's left there at this point. And I haven't seen Paulette in ages, so
Yeah. I mean, who
and
else was and then AHT,
Hoopy,
do you think
yeah,
he
Hoopy.
yeah, do you think they put him on the 40 man?
I don't.
Or can they not? I mean, so he's Rule 5 eligible. I don't know that he would get taken.
Yeah, I don't. I
'Cause I
mean,
mean,
somebody might, but
you're
I
gonna have to
doubt it.
add Montgomery. I mean, there's some other guys too, but
Well, see, here's the thing: is that with Bubba, AHT, somebody can grab him and they can throw him in a bullpen and they can leave him there all season.
I know. That's why he's an easy guy to grab.
So he could be a guy that gets grabbed.
I bet they
So I
add it.
mean,
I bet they add him to the 40 man because
yes,
I think a lot of guys are going to come off the 40 man here pretty soon, like at the tender deadline. I mean, there's just we saw two guys today actually
yeah. So I was
removed from the 40 man.
just about to bring that up. So two guys on the White Sox 40 man have declined their assignment and have elected free
Yeah,
agency, and that is Jimmy Lambert and
Matt Foster.
Matt Foster.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, what that means is for anybody that doesn't know, like if you like outright a player, like off of your big league roster, off of your 40 man, and they clear waivers, you can send them to the minors, basically. If you do that a second time, they're allowed to not go to the minors and just become free agents, and that's what these two guys did.
So we should also probably bring this up as well. The White Sox declined a couple of options this week, and we
Yes.
hadn't mentioned that yet. So Yohan Moncada has officially been given his walking papers, $5 million buyout. He is gone. Also, the White Sox made a critical decision to
Yeah.
not retain Max Stassi with
Yeah.
all. I can't believe it with the numbers that he put up that they let him walk.
So that cost them $5.5 million total, I think. And then they're paying $1.5 million of the Eloy Jimenez buyout in Baltimore too. So
Mm,
$7 million in buyouts. It's one less John Brabia that you can sign, But I mean, yeah, I guess good riddance. I mean, I was a big Moncada fan. Was very excited about that trade. I thought he was going to be really good, and he just, he is pretty good. I think
yeah,
Moncada is the most likely of all of like those failed guys here to like be decent somewhere next year. Like if you need a cheap third baseman, like if he's gonna get a big league deal. I mean, if he
yeah,
signs for $6 million somewhere and he's somebody's third baseman and he puts up a 115 WRC plus and plays decent
yeah.
defense, like I wouldn't be surprised by that.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't either. I wouldn't. It's just like one of those things where the guy just has not stayed healthy, and we've all seen the
Yeah.
grimace, the Yohan Moncada grimace after he rounds first base, and you're like, oh, what's he going to be out for this time? You know?
Yeah. The people that are the most unhappy are the people that run bars and restaurants in Northwest Indiana, apparently. So
Yeah, he's not going to be showing up and paying for everybody's tabs for a
no,
night.
it's yeah, it sucks for them, I guess.
So, I guess the last order on my thing of business here is that the White Sox picked up Penn Murphy, a
Oh yeah,
bullpen arm. Um,
teenage comedy villain. That's what I said.
yeah, it is a great name. That guy is running around in a Mercedes convertible with a Letterman jacket on,
Mhm.
creating all sorts of problems for your main character in your 80s
Yeah,
comedy movie.
yeah, and I said earlier too, this is disgusting, but I said you like find a way to somehow make him like drink his own urine or something somehow, like in the film, like you know, that's the
Yeah,
ultimate.
so I don't know a ton about him other than as we talked about off stream, that he was a position player for quite a long time, and so he ends up being we'll say at an advanced age. But he did put up some. I think he had like a 1.92 ERA in 2023 before he had Tommy John. So he's rehabbing from Tommy John still, but there's some promise in the arm there.
Yeah, and I do think after the Mariners, he kind of played DFA roulette or DFA limbo a little bit, where he like bounced from team to team to team, but he was hurt, so it's the same type of thing. I don't know how he was. So he was claimed what from Houston?
Yeah,
So he was on Houston, just injured on their 40 man apparently.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean low slot, really funky. Brian Bannister seems to like all these different types of weird pitchers.
If
So yeah,
Bannister's grabbing him, I'm into
yeah,
it.
And I don't think he throws that hard, but it's just kind of, Chad Bradfordy, but not quite as drop
Not
down,
not as
yeah,
Bradfordy.
yeah. But
So here's a good question.
it's like a low slot righty that doesn't throw that hard.
So here's a good question.
I hope so. Like that sounds like a wonderful idea.
So Joshua Nathan Strong asked, "Do you think they'll take on a bad contract to get prospects?" I would think that they might possibly, because if I like you said, they are at a $40 million payroll. Um, so I mean, they can afford. Technically, they can afford to take on some sort of a bad contract if somebody's willing to give them something to, as a parting prize.
Yeah. Yeah, like I'll take your Robbie Ray if you'd like, if you want to spend money on something else. Like if you're San Francisco. It's like I think he's owed 2 years at $50 million. Okay. Like stuff like that. Like I don't know. There's got to be guys around. I'm wondering if there's a Benintendi for bloated pitcher deal somewhere. Not bloated like fat pitcher, but bad contract pitcher,
Well, I mean, we could work on that one too.
Find a fat pitcher, yes.
Yeah, I don't know who does the uniforms for the White Sox, but I be prepared for some tight pants orders if that comes in.
Yeah, for Robbie Ray. I
Yeah.
know. Yeah. Yeah, those Nike spring training pants bad for him. That's not a good thing.
Yeah, I think I could see his intestines.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think? I mean, I was kind of surprised like there were a lot of waiver claims like across baseball, and it was like, oh, this team claimed a guy, this team. I'm like, I'm surprised the White Sox didn't just claim all these guys. Like
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I kind of figured that they would grab a couple more guys, just in general. Um, I don't know. We'll see where. I mean, I'm sure that there's still going to be a couple of names trickling out here in the next couple of days as people kind of weigh their options and whatever, and we'll see if somebody useful makes their way out on the
Yeah.
waiver wire.
What do you think? Do you think anything interesting, not even White Sox related, but like, does anything super interesting come out of the GM meetings this week?
Hmm. I don't know. Like the last couple of years, I feel like nothing's happened.
No, I mean, I feel like it's like front office hires and like this sort of like non-tender stuff, like I guess the way the Brewers do business, like Matt Arnold I think he just got voted executive of the year, and they do stuff like what they're doing with Devin Williams, which look, I mean, they're really successful doing it, but essentially like Devin Williams had like a $10.5 million option on his contract that they declined. And now they will pay him his final year of arbitration instead because it'll be less money than that. And then they're going to trade him. So, which kind of sucks for him, but
Jerry
he does.
Dipoto has to trade something during the meetings, even if it's breadsticks for soup.
Well,
He has
that's what
to
it was
trade something.
hilarious. Like, I didn't even know, like, when Anthopoulos traded, Jorge Soler to the Angels the other day. I didn't even know you were allowed to make trades yet.
I
And they were
didn't
like,
either.
like, like the Alex Anthopoulos has traded Jorge Soler to the Braves, and I'm like, is this a thing? He also like renegotiated the contracts of Ronaldo Lopez and Aaron Bummer, like
Oh, did
ripped up.
he?
Yeah, like he like ripped up their old deals, added an extra year. Like it's like I don't. He's all. It's. I feel like Anthopoulos and Jerry Dipoto. I mean, the Rays make a ton of trades, but not like those two guys. And then just I feel like there's a call. I mean, Preller's kind of nuts too, but I think he traded all of his prospects. So yeah, those guys will probably do something.
Yeah, I just don't know if it'll happen during the GM meetings. That's my major thing.
That's like where they lay the groundwork for everything that happens is at the GM meetings.
Yeah, they're all whining and dining each other, trying to feel each other out and see what
Yeah.
who's willing to give up what. And
Yeah.
as soon as one of the guys lets on that he's willing to trade some of his young bats, everybody kind of just like gravitates towards them to try and get their young bats.
Yeah, I mean the White Sox do have like the best pitcher available like on the trade market. So that's
They
good.
do.
I don't anticipate that happening anytime soon, but I guess that's a little bit interesting. I mean, the next thing we probably hear is like coaching staff hires, and then I'm really interested in the tender deadline just because, there's just dead weight on there. I think we'll learn a lot about their plans based on what they do there, like the Vaughn decision, and then ones that seem obvious like Lopez and Sheets. But I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I'm kind of well. Unfortunately for Naperville Nicky, he did not win a Gold Glove. He ends up being a runner-up. Wah, wah.
Eh, that's fine.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. But anywho, you got anything else important to bring up this week?
No, nothing important. I'm glad that like the hot stove is about to start, even though this stuff takes forever. And I feel like this off season is going to be brutal, just like similar to the brutal ones. Like, look, maybe Soto gets done somewhat early and some of the top guys sign because Boris has so many clients. But I mean, the middle portion, like these mid tier guys, I just don't see any money for these guys. With half the league has uncertain television contracts, like
I was
more
going
than
to
me,
bring
and
that up. Yeah.
it's just I just some of these like you're the Twins, like you need to add, and they claim that they can't. Like there's just all these teams that I just like don't think are going to spend at all.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of makes you wonder if you lose out on, you know, almost $1 million every game that you broadcast, yet you still have a payroll, north of 140, $150 million. Like, where's the money coming from? I mean, this is going to be a thing where it's really telling to see what payrolls end up being,
Yeah,
because if payrolls don't pull back a little bit after all these teams have lost their RSNs, uh, if that doesn't pull back with the guaranteed big money deals that a lot of these teams are getting,
yeah,
then that kind of really proves what everybody's been saying, is that the owners are making more money than they're letting on.
for sure. And I do think like this is like the one thing I think ever that I've agreed with Rob Manfred on when he wants to like what is nationalize, is that a word? I don't know, but that like he wants to kind of make it so not it'll never be the NFL, right? But like something where like all the teams are available like on one, like you just pay for one service and you have everything basically, and all the teams get all the ad revenue and everything. There's no blackouts or any of that crap. Like I think he's recognized that that's like the type of model that they have to
That's
go
what it
to.
should.
It's just going to take a while, because even like I don't know, are there blackouts on MLB TV? Like, or there are an MLB, I mean, on
Yep.
like NBA League Pass. Like, can you not watch Bulls games if
Oh,
you pay for it?
you
Because
know what? I think there is. I'm
okay,
pretty positive
because
that
like it
there is.
doesn't make it like the YouTube TV thing. Like it's expensive for the NFL package, but like it's worth it if you like watch a bunch of games. Like, there's no reason that something like that shouldn't be available. Where you pay for MLB TV, but you get every game without blackouts.
Yeah,
Like it doesn't make any sense.
if you pay the $30 a month that they ask for MLB TV, you should get all of the games.
Right.
Like, it's ridiculous that there's a blackout on that stuff. So
Oh, I think over.
well, he already got offered 12,660 from the Mets, so it's already over that, Vince.
Yeah, I think it's over. He's 14 at 7. I mean, it's gonna be freaking nuts. Like it's gonna. And how much money is he willing to take deferred? And can anybody other than the Dodgers do a deal like that?
Probably, I mean, the Yankees could. The Mets definitely could. Steve Cohen
Yeah.
could pay that. He'll pay
Or
you. He'll
Steve
pay him in
Cohen.
one lump sum.
Steve Cohen's gonna pay him in cash.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the day of. That's like a couple of stock deals in the morning for him.
Yeah, he's like, I'll just pay. Can I just pay this up front?
I know. Yeah, I know.
All right.
What's
So,
going on?
you good?
Good.
All right. So, thanks for everybody for coming in. Thanks for coming and hanging out in the Future Sox podcast. You can find all of our written content plus this lovely podcast on FutureSox.net. Know that if you are listening to this in podcast form, we do stream it. And we are going to be moving back to Sundays now. I had a previous engagement last night, so I could not be here last night, but we are going to move to Sundays starting next week again. So Just look for it then on Monday morning in podcast, and we will be live on YouTube on Sunday night. Also, you can find all the minor league highlights that you are looking for on FutureSox at FutureSox on Twitter/X, whatever you like to call it. You can also find a bunch of those highlights on our YouTube channel if you are looking for that. My name's Ian Eskridge at Daily White Sox. He's James Fox at James Fox 917. We appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Thanks for hopping in the chat. You guys are awesome. We appreciate you. You guys have a great night, and we will talk to you next week. Have a good night. Thanks.